Well, speaking of buy now, pay later, and pivoting over to the other side of the spectrum here, PayPal also last week announced an acquisition that they are making. And it's a relatively small acquisition, comparatively speaking, at least. But Paydi, a Japanese buy now, pay later firm, uh, PayPal is going to be acquiring Paydi and bringing that into their network. I believe $2.9 billion was the deal there, primarily financed with cash there on PayPal's part. Not a big acquisition for a business like PayPal. I mean, in considering that they have already built their own buy now pay later offering. I mean, some may ask, well, why would they buy this as opposed to just expanding their offering? And I mean, oftentimes just getting into another geographical area of the world can be a lot more difficult, even if you've built something that's showing the promise that PayPal's buy now pay later offering is showing today here domestically. Being able to roll that out around the globe is a little bit of a different ask, and so it seems like they are buying that share into the Japanese opportunity. And I tell you, looking at the numbers, it seems like, I mean, this seems like a very reasonable bet on PayPal's part.
Yeah, I like this a whole lot more than I like Square spending $29 billion on advertising.
I did
And
too.
not just because it's 1/10 of the price. I like the strategy of it better.
Move the decimal over just one, and man, I tell you, it looks a lot better, doesn't it?
Right. Well, it's a bolt-on acquisition, right?
Yeah.
Unlike Square's, which is trying to, establish buy now, pay later from scratch. PayPal's already done that. PayPal's already built a buy now, pay later platform. And now they're just trying to optimize it, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
This gets them into the Japanese market. It gets them Paydi's proprietary technology. Paydi uses proprietary technology to underwrite their loans, to assess credit worthiness. They have their own credit scoring method.
Wow.
To determine consumer credit that could be ultimately applied around the world. It's an impressive platform. They're the leader in the Japanese market, which is the #3 economy worldwide for e-commerce, by the way. So it gets them a big head start in that market. Which, I mean, is Square really? Square's not an international company at this point. Afterpay is in a few markets. They're primarily Australia and the US.
Yeah.
Where Square already is. So it doesn't really open up the global, and PayPal's already a global company. So I like that they could take this leader in one really strong market and kind of apply it to the 100+ countries they operate all over the world. It just seems like a better use of capital than just spending $29 billion to buy a established buy now, pay later service. That's just my opinion. And this is coming from a Square shareholder. So
yeah, well, I mean, this is coming from a Square and a PayPal shareholder. I tend to agree with you. When I look at this acquisition, it's certainly a lot easier to stomach. I mean, this is, if it doesn't work out, it clearly, I mean, that's not good, but it's not something that really moves the needle for PayPal either way. But to your point, I mean, being able to take this and even extending the proprietary technology that they get, extending the IP that they gain from this acquisition to a global scale, I mean, it could be very meaningful over time. And particularly when you look at the Japanese market, I found this pretty fascinating. I mean, Japanese market is still very cash heavy. I mean, they said around 70% of all purchases are still paid for in cash. And so the Japanese people as a culture, it would seem, are much more debt averse than probably others. And not to say that's a bad thing at all, but I mean, it is probably a challenge that they'll have to overcome in convincing people that, hey, this is a way that you can purchase what you want to purchase if you want. Right. So if you have 70% of all purchases still paid for in cash, well, that means you probably have a lot of room to change people's minds and show them there's another way. But by the same token, I mean, maybe it's a little bit easier said than done. But probably, I mean, we want to see that number come down over time for this to be an acquisition that really moves the needle, at least from a Japanese market perspective.